Joseph, Julie, Ashley, Jake, Zach, Chase. Alright, so jumping, hopping, when the jumping's 2 feet to 2 feet, can be 1 foot to 2 feet, but typically when we're talking about jumping, we're looking at 2 feet to 2 feet. Hopping is 1 foot to the same foot, leaping is 1 foot to the other foot. Okay? So try to use the right terminology when you're talking about these skills on the playground. When we look at the development of jumping, you'll see quite a few children on the playground don't jump very well yet. Hopefully they're trying something by around 2. When you are looking at assessments on jumping, be very careful because some assessments are for a long jump type jump. Some assessments are for a vertical jump type jump, all right? And those 2 actions have different mechanics in that the application of the force is different. If I want to jump forwards, how do I apply the force to the floor? Remember, I'm a mechanical instructor. If I want to move forwards, where is my force application, or what is my force application doing? Down and back, good Julian, right? If I want to go forwards, I have to push down and back so the floor pushes me forwards and up, right? If I want to go up, all I have to do is push down, right? So for the brain, it takes a while for that brain to differentiate and be able to alternate those 2 skills, right? We can do it automatically, but when they're little, they can't change, right? That's because it's basically 2 different skills at that stage, right? Often what you'll see is that rather than a true jump where we take off 2 and land on 2, they do sort of that. It's not really jumping. It depends if their legs are strong enough. Right? And you don't see very much leg bend, like they don't really bend in order to jump. They just try to get themselves off the ground. And as we get better at that, then we start to see using the legs more. Both feet are going to leave the floor at the same time. Hopefully we see an arm swing. Right? When we do in the ex-phys lab, we do a long jump assessment. You'd be amazed how many of the students don't use a very good arm swing on a long jump assessment. Because it takes some practice to time the arm swing with the jump. Let's see. All right. And same as the previous part of the lecture, I'm not going to show every piece of film. Remember, you've got access to these film clips on your website for the book, so we won't watch all of them, otherwise we won't get out of here. See, so there's very little action going on, hardly any knee bend at all, no arms. just about taking off of 2 feet, but the feet aren't together. So it's not a very effective jumping action at this point. So the legs are better, we see some knee bend, we've got a little bit more push and extension through the legs, but still very little arm. I mean, her arms are just doing this winging action that is noted on the MSU chart, right? And this is not mechanically very efficient, it's not helping the jump very much, right? What we want is a nice, strong arm swing in the same plane of movement. We want to go forward, so winging our arms out to the side is not very effective. So again, you've got to be a little bit careful when you're looking at jumping with particularly younger children, if you're going to work with elementary children, because if what I'm measuring is the product, is the quantitative amount of the jump, so how far did they jump or how high did they jump, that is going to get better just because they grow. Doesn't mean that their jumping technique is very good. So developmentally, we're more interested in looking at the process of jumping, what is occurring while they're jumping, not the outcome of the jump, because the outcome could get better just because they grew 3 inches, right? So depending which age group you're working with, you need to pay attention to that idea, because you don't, especially if you're grading, how are you going to assign a grade in your PE class? Right? Some PE teachers assign grades based on improvement in skills. Right? Well, how do you classify improvement? Right? You have to make that decision ahead of time. What's going to be the improvement? Because are you going to give a grade to someone because they grew, or are you going to give a grade to someone because they technically got better? So you've got to be a little bit careful. Not every child eventually masters jumping. So especially with the increase in overweight and obesity issues with young children, you can get quite old children. I mean, you can look at 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds who don't technically jump, right? Either because they're heavy at that age, or because they were very heavy when they were younger and their strength hasn't caught up yet. Right? So not everybody jumps when we're looking at technical flight time. There has to be a flight time in a jump, right? There has to be a point in time where nothing is on the floor, otherwise it's not jumping. So if what I do is that a jump? Right? I took off 1 foot and I landed on 2 feet, but did I jump? Right? Probably not, because I suspect that my feet hit the floor as my foot left the floor. Okay? So that can't be jumping. Hopping, 1 foot to the same foot, right? Again, hopping can be up and down, or it can be forwards, right? Hopping, we see later than jumping. Why? Why do we see hopping after jumping? Balance, that's one reason why, right? I have to have a lot more balance to take off and land on one leg. Strength, good, right? Because if a hop again has to have a flight phase, if I'm going to propel myself off the floor from one leg, that takes a lot more force from that one leg than jumping off two legs. Right? So strength plays a big role, balance plays a big role. Quite often when you watch inexperienced people hop, their free leg tends to be in the front here, because it sort of, possibly not consciously, but it's almost like it's trying to lift them off the floor. Okay. Arms don't do very much, or they're circling around at this shoulder height, which is really not useful. Okay. Good hopping. They're talking about the swing leg. In that instance, they're talking about a hop that is moving forwards, not up and down. But the support leg should be extending completely. There might be oppositional arms if you're trying to move forwards. That's technically really tricky. So I would say that's a little bit more than just proficient hopping. That's pretty good. Right? It is hard to hop. On that MSU chart, that final stage of hopping is actually very complicated. All right, so I wish they had included the loop mode. Right, so he's just about getting himself off the ground with that one leg. You can see the arms are completely hopeless, right? There's nothing going on with the arms. They're not adding anything to the skill. Right? The free leg isn't doing very much at all. So, but he's managing to propel himself forwards. If we were able to slow this down, there definitely is a flight phase there, so it's not bad. I would probably have hoped that someone, he looks, I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe. I would have hoped it was a little bit better than that, but it's not horrible. I know I'm mean, aren't I? He is. I didn't say that. All right, so this is that idea of pendular hopping. He could probably, if he had more room, I mean, he's going, I would say, given by the lines on the floor, looks like he's going side to side across the gym rather than down the length of the gym. I suspect if you gave him a little bit more room, that would be faster and you'd see a little more action in the swinging leg, because this is pretty good. Although still, I don't think I would count that as oppositional arms. I think both arms are going at the same time. So there's still some work to be done on that hop if we were going to categorize it as fully mature. Yeah. So some of you may have done hopping for your TGMD. Okay, anybody do hopping? A couple of you. What did you see? Anything that looks like hopping? Anything that was successful hopping?
Yeah, actually, our girl did pretty good.
Who did you have?
Nala.
Nala?
Yeah.
She's pretty advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got 4 or 5-year-olds that don't hop well, you'll see on the playground. If you're looking at children who are under 3, which technically we don't have, although there's one that's only just 3, you see very few children hopping at all. let alone repeatedly under the age of 3. And some of that is just because hopping isn't a skill we play with. Like as parents, if we go out to the park, we forget to play with hopping. And it's quite a good way of pulling the kids' attention back, especially if they're misbehaving. Give them something that is challenging that they can't do, and they have to concentrate on that, and you get some behavioral changes that are quite useful. So, the neuromuscular system has to learn to land on that one leg. So when you land on one leg, you don't land with a straight leg, right? You land and you bend the knee. Well, if I bend the knee and I'm not contracting the thigh muscle and the quads, I collapse in a heap on the floor. So one of the interesting things when you look at electromyograph, when you look at EMG recordings on hopping, is the activation of the muscles in the leg to stabilize the leg as you hit the floor. Right? So for a 3-year-old, that's very hard. So it takes quite a lot of time for the brain to learn that pattern of recruitment. I have to turn on these muscles as I hit the floor, otherwise I just buckle and collapse. Right? I've got to learn to stabilize the knee as I land. Right? Think about individual constraints and our principles of motion. I've got to be able, I want to be able to absorb the force over the longest amount of time. So, does ankle flexibility impact hopping? Yeah. Because if I can't bend my knee and absorb the force, then I can't hop very well. So walking, running, jumping, hopping. The next skill we see in the sequence is galloping. So you don't very often see galloping before hopping. If they've got someone in the family that does a lot of dancing and they go to ballet, they may try galloping. Because it's, you know, you don't in ballet class practice hopping, but you do practice galloping in a ballet class. Right? So if they've got an older sibling who's going to ballet, then you might see galloping earlier than expected. Galloping, sliding, and skipping are all combination skills. So it's the first time we see things being put together in order to create the skill. Okay? So for galloping, galloping is an asymmetrical skill because both legs do something different when I gallop. Right? So a gallop means I'm facing forwards, the front leg always stays in the front, and the back leg takes the landing. Right? The back leg should not cross over the front leg. So when you try galloping with people who aren't experienced, it can be quite fun to watch the brain trying to work out where does the leg go. Right? If you guys try to gallop when you leave, try to gallop when you leave the classroom, see what happens. Why are you laughing at me? It's a fun skill. Try it and see what happens. All right? Sliding is asymmetrical. And most of you probably have more experience with sliding than with galloping because sliding is a sport skill and galloping is a dance skill. Right? So sliding is galloping but sideways basically. Right? The second leg does not cross over the front leg. The front leg always leads, so again it's asymmetric. Right? Because the legs do something different. And I face sideways all the time. and can go forwards. So where the hips are pointing is important. Skipping is typically the last skill that we see because it's quite complicated. I have to step and hop and step and hop and step and hop. So I can't skip if I can't hop. Right? And skipping is symmetrical because both legs do the same thing. It's like that walking. It's a 50% phasing. Right? I do the same thing on both sides of the body to achieve the skip. Okay, so what are our rate limiters? Strength is typically a rate limiter for most of these locomotor skills. Right? When I look at galloping, it's the first time we see the brain trying to do two different things with the limbs. So we have to uncouple the legs because it's much easier for both sides of the brain to do the same thing. Right? So this is much easier than this. Right? Is much easier than doing something totally different with both arms. Right? My right hemisphere controls my left side, my left hemisphere controls my right side. So once I start doing different things with both sides, those two parts of the brain have to be able to talk to each other to get the timing right to create the skill. That's called uncoupling. And the brain also has to learn to produce different force from different limbs. Because in a gallop, the front leg produces a lot more force than the back leg. Sliding, again some coordination because I have to be able to go sideways, and that's not very natural initially. We like to be upright and forwards, so it takes a bit of time to be able to work going to the side. And skipping, can I do two things on one leg? Can I step and hop before I do something else? So I have to coordinate different motor patterns into one skill set. So do we ever think about this? Because it's an interesting question. Given all our options for movement as a human, why do we walk? Right? Why do we stand up and walk? Why is that the motor pattern that we tend to see emerge from our interaction of constraints when my goal is to get from A to B? If you've got one?
It's the easiest and laziest way to get from one place to another.
Okay. It's mechanically very easy. The shape of our body does fall into that pattern very easily, right? The emergence of that skill is quite simple. Lazy is difficult. I know what you mean, but lazy, the term lazy implies cognitive decision not to move very fast, which it may or may not be cognitive. The brain picks walking, right? I mean, when you leave class, unless you're in a hurry, which changes the constraint, how are you going to leave class? Right? You laughed at me when I said gallop.
Does walking put less stress on the body?
That's possible because there's no flight phase in walking. It doesn't impact the joints as hard, so that might be one of the reasons it self-organizes into walking.
Conserving energy.
Conserving energy, definitely. The brain tries to conserve energy. All right, so there's lots of ideas here. We just don't think about it very often. I like to cartwheel, but you will laugh at me. typical. So I wanted to show you this little clip of film because this is a group of people who don't walk. And it's quite, if I can get it to play. Uh-oh. Come on. Hold on, that's still in YouTube. That should be playing. It played before. I can find it here.
Which may reveal treatment options that weren't considered previously.
Genomic testing is the future of cancer.
Learn more at cancercenter.com.
In a remote corner of Turkey, 5 unusual siblings come to the attention of the world. Victims of a mysterious condition.
This is their mode of choice.
They now face international scrutiny.
And when they came across this family, it's generated a lot of interesting ideas because they picked this completely different way of locomoting that is not typical for a human. So they've done quite a lot of feel a bit bad because they kind of treat them like.
The popular press.
See if I can find.
And that's because we have developed a breathtaking sense of balance. Humans are exquisitely adept, but handwalkers lack the physical architecture of our ape-like ancestors. Could ancient genes be prompting them to mimic ancestral behaviors as best they can?
See, it's interesting because if you look at the environment doesn't look particularly unusual. So it's not that the skill has emerged because of a peculiar environment. Right? See, and that's a Babinski, and she should not be exhibiting a Babinski at that age. So that's...
Next time checks their ability to do simple tasks. Hussein manages
if you're interested, it's about an hour long, this documentary. They do have some film where they are upright. It's not that they can't walk, they don't walk very well, but they can walk upright. But it's a bit like, remember when I said with the baby, when the baby's first learning to stand up and walk, if they're in a hurry to get somewhere, they'll drop back down and they'll scoot, right? And they'll creep over quickly because walking's a bit slow. This family can stand up and walk, but when they want to achieve something, they drop down onto all fours and they go on all fours. So it's a very developmentally interesting picture because we're not aware of another group of humans that does that by choice. And I think, you know, when you look at the film, there's some pretty obvious developmental issues going on with them as a group. But we still don't know why they walk on hands and feet. It's very interesting. Okay, so that's chapter 7. Bless you. All right. Let's take a break from looking at that for a moment. Today is Wednesday, right?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Oh my God. Tuesday. See, I got into Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I still can't get used to Tuesday. Now, what's next week, guys? Already. Heck, midterms already. So, today is the 29th. What is due on Friday? Yes, thank you. Good answer. Binders are due on Friday, and your next exam is next Wednesday. So make sure that you're, next Thursday. Okay? So make sure that you're reviewing this material as we're going along so that you're ready. We'll have a review session on Tuesday. Exam will be Thursday. Right?
What do you do with the binders?
What do you do with them? Bring them here, give them to me so I can grade them for midterm.
How do we create a binder? How do we create a binder?
Have you read your guidelines?
Yep.
Carlton, you are too much, my friend. Don't buy a binder because the HPE admin office has boxes of empty binders. Alright, so don't spend money on a binder, go and ask them for an empty one. Right? So, yes.
We have a class, right? I thought we don't have a class because we was playground with the kids.
Thursday. We have class today, we have class on Thursday. Do I keep saying Friday? Sorry, Thursday. Right? So remember, number 1 is just your introduction and your Newell's constraints theory. So we've got to start chapter 8. Thursday we'll finish chapter 8. We'll look at chapter 9. Tuesday will be the review. Next Thursday will be your exam number 2. They're not cumulative. It's only on the chapters since the last exam. And then I have to have grades online the following Monday after midterm. Yes.
Is that document through the lab?
No, that one's on the class. Want me to check? Did I forget to open it?
I should know, because I can't find anything on Blackboard.
Oh, that happens. All right. Chapter go through some of them. It covers quite a few, all right? But once I've shown you kind of the approach to looking at a couple of them, the rest of them are similar. The idea is the same. We're looking at a developmental trend. Unfortunately, when we look at ballistic skills, we don't have quite as much research on a lot of them, so we don't have validated sequences for development. We've got some idea of how they develop, but we don't always have the research to support them. So some of them we're still working on. People are still looking at them. All right, so a ballistic skill, anything where we're applying force to an object. Okay, so throwing, kicking, striking, punting, right? Something where I am throwing, kicking, heading would be a ballistic skill in soccer. Okay. And we're going to look at throwing first. Throwing is the only ballistic skill we have tons and tons of research on, because in this culture, throwing is a very important skill. A lot of the people who are in PE or motor development or motor learning are people that competed in baseball or football. So there's a lot of personal interest in throwing as a skill. So there's way too much information out there on throwing. It would be nice if we had some on some of the other skills as well. We can throw underhand with one or two hands. So we don't very often see a two-handed underhand throw in sport, but we do quite often see a one-handed underhand throw, right? Sidearm throw. So if I'm picking up a ball in the outfield in cricket, you quite often will see a sidearm throw back to the wicket. And an overarm. So most often what we're looking at is a one-arm overarm, but soccer goalies use a two-handed to throw the ball back quite often. In rugby, no, rugby is a one-handed. God, it's so long since I've watched a game of rugby. When they throw the ball in rugby, that's in the game, but when they're on the side and they're throwing in and they've got the overhead. Two-handed? Yeah, I think so. I think that's a two-handed one. So when we're looking at assessment, again, we think about what is it I want to know. I've got to pick the assessment that works out what it is I want to know. So am I interested in the outcome? Am I looking at a product measure? How accurate was it? How far did the ball go? How hard was the ball thrown? Right? How fast was the ball going? I can measure all those things. They're all outcome measures, product measures. Okay? Or I can look at what's happening. What is the pattern of the throwing? I can look at a process measure. Okay? So when we're talking about developmental sequences, we're looking at process measures. Early throwing, think back to your MSU chart, right? Early throwing, there's no feet, lots of elbow and arm chopping, okay? There's really not a lot of mechanical action going on in early overarm throwing. You make me hungry. It's just the chewing. I can't eat enough food at the moment. I'm starving. Here we go. So I'm rowing. Right, so with some of the little younger class, you're going to see this quite a lot. Right? Right, that's classic stage 1. Right. As we get more practice and we're more experienced with throwing, if we ask someone to throw for force, so we're asking them to throw the ball as hard as they can, then we start to see some wind up, right? We'll start to see some weight shifting from a front foot to the back foot, a little bit of rotation. Okay? Hopefully, with more practice, we see a step in opposition, and that step gets longer because we're asking them to throw for force. Remember, the longer I can apply force to the ball, the further the ball is going to go. So taking a big step allows me more time than taking a short step. So mechanically, a big long step, if the goal is force, is much more useful. Okay. The crazy people who research throwing are interested in looking at arm lag, both upper arm and forearm lag. So where is the hand in relation to the elbow and the wrist? Right? They get a bit silly about their throwing. I've been at a conference where there's lots of big arguments about throwing and how do you coach throwing, and they have a lot of fun discussing this. And movements are sequential, so I want to transfer momentum. So I'm going to go back, my arm swing, I'm going to step forwards as far as I can. I'm going to have sequential rotation so that I can apply force to the ball for as long as possible. And you can watch that clip. She doesn't take a very long step, but her arm action is quite nice. So, I mentioned last Thursday this idea of the component approach to assessment. Our MSU chart and our TGMD are total body approaches to assessment. Our textbook introduces us to the idea of a component approach. So instead of grading the skill as a whole, I break the skill up into its important components, and I grade each component separately. Throwing is mechanically quite a complicated skill, and so my colleagues managed to come up with 5 different components for throwing. And they'll tell you that all these 5 components are really, really important for efficient throwing. Okay? Trunk action, so what's going on with the trunk? That's one component. The backswing. So what's happening in the backswing? Upper arm action, forearm action, and foot action. Right? So in a component approach, you've got to pick the things about the skill that you think are the most important. And then we have to look at the developmental sequence for that component separately. So the observation plan for throwing then has our 5 components. Here's our foot action, here's our trunk action, here's the backswing, here's the humerus, here's the forearm. Okay. And the observation plan is a useful way of assessing using a component approach. All right. I'm going to ask a yes-no question. The answer is yes or no. Usually they're yes-no questions, and that allows me to grade that component. All right. So, foot action. Watch from the side. Is a step taken? Yes or no? Right? If there's no step taken, then they get step 1. So you can assign 1 point or however, no points, right? It's up to you how you want to do that. If the answer to the first question is yes, they take a step. Okay, but that doesn't give me enough information, so that can't be the end of grading that component, right? Because the step is not enough. Right? So, is the step homo or contralateral? So is it an ipsilateral step, homolateral, ipsilateral are the same? Do I step with the same foot as arm? Or do I step with the contralateral foot, the opposite foot? Yes or no? Easy question, right? If it's a no and they're stepping with the same foot, then they get step 2. If it's a yes and they're stepping with the opposite foot, well, maybe that's all I want to know. But depending on the level of throwing, that might not be the end of the picture. So I want to be able to work out a little bit more about that step. Okay? So is the step over half the thrower's height? So are they taking a short step and throwing the ball, or are they taking a massively long step and throwing the ball? Yes or no? And that gives me step 3 and step 4. And we take that approach for every component. Okay. That means then that I end up with a series of grades for this person's throw. Okay. So if I put it on a piece of paper and I have foot, trunk, backswing, humerus, forearm, right? Then maybe they get a 3 and 2. Trunk action has 3 levels. Yeah. Backswing, maybe we get to step 3 in the backswing, but we only get to step 1 in the humerus and the forearm. There's no lag. Lag does the same thing as the step, right? If I've got lag in the arm, then I'm applying force to the ball for longer. So it mechanically does the same thing for us as that big long step does. So I've got this pattern now for this person, okay? I can say, okay, this is what this person looks like. So what am I going to work on? If I'm the teacher, I think the first thing I want to work on is this foot action. So I'm going to concentrate my feedback and the way I set the skill up on trying to get them to take a bigger step. Because the first thing I'd like to see is this move to a 4. Okay. So we work for a few weeks. I reassess the skill, and maybe we achieve the goal. We get a 4 there, and we may or may not see change in the trunk and the backswing and the humerus and the foot because we didn't concentrate on those. But perhaps my decision to concentrate on the big step is because I know if I make them take a big step, chances are I'm going to get more trunk rotation. I don't know anything about throwing, right? Okay, so I can change and coach each component separately. Now, am I ever going to get every component to its highest level? Probably not unless I'm working with a competitive athlete. Right? If I'm working with PE students or I'm working with recreation level students, I'm not likely to get every one of these components right up to its top score. But it gives me something to keep working on. There's a very useful way of grading, except it takes a lot of time. And it helps a lot if you have a camera. Uh-oh, you okay?
Yeah.
Don't choke there. That would be bad. All right? Helps a lot if I have a camera to do this, because otherwise I can't grade all these components just by watching someone do the skill. Right? I can, on a film, I can run through the film, I can grade their feet, and then I can run through the film again, I can grade what the humorist is doing. Right? So it really does benefit you to have a couple of cameras if you're trying to work with a component approach. If we take this approach, then one of the things we have to pay attention to is that it's unlikely that every component will change at the same time. Right? So I'm going to see improvements in some. I might start working on the backswing. Right? If I get my foot, my step at a 4, and I go, okay, now I'm going to work on this backswing idea. And then when I assess it the next time, maybe my foot action went back to 3 because I spent so much time concentrating on the backswing and I didn't keep reminding them about the step. So it can be flexible. Right? Once I've achieved it doesn't mean I keep it. I have to keep practicing it. Okay? And you'll see quite a big difference. We see a difference just using the MSU and the TGMD chart between boys and girls. If you start to use a component approach, you see pretty large differences between boys and girls, particularly in this humerus and forearm leg. It seems to be very difficult for girls to do this component well. So that might be a strength, right? Remember, our guys are putting on loads of muscle mass up here, their arms are longer than ours, so perhaps mechanically it's just more efficient for a guy to develop humerus length than it is for a girl. Perhaps it's just that girls don't practice throwing enough to develop humerus length, because that's pretty complicated and it's very advanced. When we look at the research on throwing in an adult population, not an athletic population, remember you guys aren't typical, right? But if we look at a normal adult population, then we see quite advanced steps in most of the components. For adults, we still see very large differences between the sexes. So once we've diverged and we've gone off on these two tangents as boys and girls on certain skills, the research would say there is never a point once the split has occurred where we come back. So the girls never really catch up into adulthood and later adulthood. Ball velocities aren't too bad, considering that they don't score 100% on their components. The ball velocities are pretty moderate. They're generally around about the velocity that a 9-year-old would throw. Okay, the guys are a little bit faster than the girls because they've got more muscle, but somewhere around 9 years old, I'm able to throw as well or as fast as what we see with a typical adult population in their 30s or 40s. Because they've been at work for 20 years and they haven't been throwing a ball very much. Always, once you're looking at adults, there could be some structural constraints that you have to take into account that might be explaining what you're seeing in a particular component. So they may have a lower back issue that's developed. That means that twisting is uncomfortable. So the tack that emerges is something that doesn't have a lot of trunk rotation, or maybe it has a blocked rotation and no segmental rotation because they've got this back injury. what we do see that is quite interesting is that although we see the pattern and the velocities decline over time, that decline is very slow. I don't suddenly see a drop-off in adult throwing behavior. Right? It really is quite slow and dependent upon those structural constraints and the amount of practice that you get. Right? Okay, I think you look like you're falling asleep. Must be time for food. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Turn the car alarm off. Okay, so Thursday we'll finish off chapter 8. We'll look at chapter 9. Okay.